Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show is brought to you by DKI Canada. Across the street, across the country. He is one of Canada's most accomplished sports writers. Steve Buffery covered 10 Olympics, helped thwart a robbery, and about that murder rap. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show. Come on up! Our guest today hails from Toronto, a high school wrestling champion, 41 years as a sports journalist, 37 years at the Toronto Sun. His column was Leave It to Beezer, covered 10 Olympic Games, ringside for numerous title fights, National Newspaper Award nominee, 3 Dunlop Awards, Sports Federation of Canada Award winner. He recently authored a new book, a member of the Etobicoke Hall of Fame. Welcome to the program, Steve Buffery. Beezer, good to have you on, my friend.
Great to be on, Joe. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you coming on. And I want to talk about the new book. You sent me the manuscript. Loved it. A fun book. Have you got, first of all, you got a publisher yet? And have you got a title?
No and no. How's that for preparation?
Yeah.
No, I don't. I finished it about a year ago, and I've been hunting for a publisher, and it's kind of it's frustrating. I didn't think I'd go through this. I was very naive, Joe, in thinking that once I retired, I had a bit of a name for myself. Publishers would be lining up to publish this thing, but they're not for various reasons. And the most frustrating part about it is the guys who have gotten back to me. Most of them don't even get back to you. I don't know if they actually read it, but the ones who have read it and got back to me said they really enjoyed it, and they really liked it, and they hope they see it published by somebody else, but for various reasons, they can't pick it up. So, I'm still plugging away, still doing some rewrites. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Perry Lefko chatted it up online, and Perry's written a number of books and knows how to get it published, and really thinks that the publisher should jump on this. And I'm not, this isn't my forte when it comes to book publishing or anything else, but I've read quite a few books, and I really certainly enjoyed this one. And there's a lot of information in there that, some insight into the sports writing business in Canada, in its heyday, that I think would interest a lot of people. So anyway, let's put a plug in for you and hope you get that thing published right away. But I want to talk about your childhood, which was pretty wild. You grew up as one of 8 kids in a family, and tell us about that family dynamic.
Well, it's hard to know where to start, but I published. We lived. There was 8 of us, and a dad who was rarely home because he was in the bar business, and he also had a booze can downtown, an after-hours illegal bar. And he, when I was a kid, he also, before they had Proline, he sold football, took football bets, NFL bets at the bars he worked at, and his booze can. And he had various people, including my uncle, who sold for them. And he hosted professional card games that my brother and I used to make sandwiches for when we were little boys for the card players to make money. And so it was a very unorthodox childhood. And my dad's deceased now, unfortunately, but he was, I don't know, there's no sort of sugarcoating this, but he was kind of a criminal at heart as a young man, especially. And he never sort of, he worked legitimately, but there was always that other sort of criminal element. And he was a tough, it wasn't an easy place to grow up. I mean, the only thing that I say that saved me was we were in a nice little neighborhood, and I had a lot of good friends. So it was hard. And my brothers and sisters really suffered, and still are in some ways, when you come from a dysfunctional family like that. And so it was tough. But, I give my mom a lot of credit, and managed to climb out of it, even though, I know for a fact that some of the things I went through still kind of haunt me to this day. And I also know that a lot of people go through this kind of thing with, they suffer from mental health issues and that. And I've sort of always fought them on my own. When I was younger, my mom sent me to a shrink. But as I gotten older, it's tough, but fortunately there was also a lot of humor, and but I always say my friends saved me because I think the joke was my dad was grooming me to go into his business, which is the bar business and other criminal type of things. So there you go.
Right. Well, you mentioned your mother saved you, right? But he was abusive to you guys and your mother, so that was a difficult road for her to walk, I'm sure.
Oh, just terrible. Like, I was talking to one of my sisters just the other day, and she said, "I'm amazed." Well, some of us didn't, but she says, "I'm amazed most of us made it out and are, quasi normal, well-adjusted people." But it was tough. It was a kind of a hard line to walk when I wrote the book, Joe, because I didn't want to completely dump on my dad, because he was one of these old school dads who I think at one point he worked 16 straight years without taking a single week's off, because in his business they didn't have paid holidays, and he just worked and worked and worked. So when he moved out of our home and moved downtown permanently, there was never enough money and stuff, but he did, he worked his butt off, and he, in a lot of ways, which I think I touched on in the book, that it was a shame that he was sort of the black sheep of the family, because his brothers and sisters all did very well, but he could have done so much looking back. But he had, he was in prison and jail when he was a young man, and his mom threw him out at a very young age. So when I look back at, he's very bright and really, really, really funny, and really and very musically gifted and all that stuff. But it's the saddest part to me is that he just threw it all away, and so with his bad, there was some good. And, it's a shame that what he did to us, So I think I got off it easier than a lot of my siblings,
Right. It sounds like you come to a place where you do have some compassion for him and some ability to forgive, I suppose. Do you feel like you've forgiven him?
Yeah, kind of. Like, as I said in the book, I sort of forgive him in some ways, but I know my siblings don't all forgive him, and I don't blame them. It's just, a lot of it, Joe, I couldn't even touch on in the book. It's not for me. I addressed how, brutal it was living under his regime at one point, but right. I certainly can't speak for my brothers and sisters, because I can't. I know they can't forgive him. I know they're all very compassionate people, but when your life is screwed up because of your childhood, it's hard, right? So in some ways, and I always say my mom, even though she had her issues, which is natural given what she had to go through, and my friends sort of lifted me up. Thank goodness.
You talked about your dad too, but I know there's one incident in the book that you talked about where I think you were pretty glad that he was there with you at this particular juncture. You're talking about when you were a teenager and you became a murder suspect, and your dad was sort of tagging along for that one. Tell us about that a little bit about that.
Well, he'd gone through that sort of thing when he was a young man. So I got picked up one Sunday morning at home in Etobicoke. I'd been working in Kitchener-Waterloo area with my older brother Mike, building houses. He was a contractor and a builder, and I used to hitchhike home on weekends. And one Sunday morning, my brother came to my door and said there were two detectives looking for me upstairs. And after brushing them off initially, I went up, and there they were. And to make a long story short, they took me to police headquarters because I was accused of murdering some guy downtown in a park. And apparently I matched the description. After it happened, they solicited the area, and I was working on weekends with my dad at the old Nag's Head Tavern at the Eaton Center, plus at his booze can on Shooter Street downtown. So the park where this poor guy was murdered, beaten to death, was right near the downtown core. So apparently a bunch of guys that the cops had solicited had the description apparently matched me to a T. So they came and got me, and they took me downtown to police headquarters, which in those days was on Jarvis. And they were very nice at first, and talking and asking me a lot of questions. And I wasn't freaking out because at first I thought it was a joke. I think I was kind of too dumb to realize how serious the situation was. So, and the old man was joking a bit, and he was quiet. But as soon as we're in the police headquarters, and one of the detectives said, "Well, Mr. Buffery, we're going to take Stephen up to the homicide room now and talk to him privately." And I got up thinking, "Oh yeah, these seem like great guys." And suddenly my dad's attitude changed completely, and he basically said, "You're not going anywhere with this kid alone unless I'm there or our lawyer." And the cop said, "Mr. Buffer, relax." He goes, "No." His exact quote was, and 40 odd years later, I remember it. He said, "You'll have this kid confessing to every unsolved murder in the city in the last 20 years by the time you're through with him. I know how you effing guys work."
Yeah. Right.
So at that point, the cops relented and just tried a different tack, which was eventually to take me to the bus station on Bay Street and get this one of the witnesses to walk around me and stare at me. And, I was supposedly not supposed to look at the guy and read a book. And meanwhile, everybody in the bus station was watching me because the cops announced it. "Please don't look at this guy." So of course, they were all staring at me, right? So, and I was supposed to look at the guy himself, but I couldn't help but take a peek at him. And then they had me walk up and down Bay Street for a while the guy stood on the other side of the street and watched me. I don't know what the hell they were expecting me to do, pull out a knife and stab in the air. "Oh, yeah, that's him."
Yeah.
But eventually, after, I don't know, a couple of days, they brought me home. And the funny part of the story, if there's a funny part, was that when I left the house initially with the old man to go downtown, the cops said to my mom and all my brothers and sisters, "Don't mention this to your neighbors and stuff." Okay. So by the time I got home, we drove up our street, pulled into the house, and it was a summer day, and there was 1 million people on our front lawn, mothers, fathers, kids. And I got out of the police car, and all the mothers mobbed me and kissed me and hugged me and were crying. And my dad turned to one of the cops and said, "You want to do the kid a favor? Put him back in the cop car and take him back downtown." Because I was so embarrassed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they kept checking up on me too, Joe. They didn't, frankly, if you go on I don't even, I should say this, but if you go on the Toronto Police homicide site or whatever, that particular murder is still unsolved. So the cops used to check up on me a lot. Not a lot, but from time to time,
From time to time, yeah. Just make sure you're...
Beat anybody up lately,
Yeah, right. Wow, that's such a crazy ordeal, but I guess I guess they wanted to see the way you walked or, moved away from the scene or whatever the heck it was.
And the thing was too, in those days, I was a booze hound. Not anymore, and I used to get in lots of fights, and I was in trouble a couple of times. I could never fight very well, unlike yourself, but you know what it is when you're full of alcohol, you think you're the second coming of Rocky Marciano.
Yeah.
So the other thing is too, Joe, I was in the living room with the cops, and the cops said to my mother, "Yeah, well, some man was beaten to death." And my mom yells out, "Oh, he's never been in a fight in his life." I go, "Ma, come on." I was embarrassed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was some levity to the whole thing,
Yeah.
And the greatest levity was they let me off, so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was a good part of it for sure,
Yeah. But that wasn't my only issue with the cops before and after, right? So, but that was probably the most,
Obviously, that's kind of the big one. But there's another. You also talk about the time you helped thwart a robbery. Tell us about that.
Well, I was a teenager working at a gas station, the Shell station by the airport on Dixon Road, and I used to work the overnight shift. And you're supposed to sit in your little booth all night, but we didn't have much traffic in those days, so I used to go in the office and read Playboy magazines and all that stuff. Well, the mechanic, it was supposed to be a 24-hour mechanic, was sleeping in his car. So these two guys came in about 3 a.m. and they were clearly stoned or something. And they basically, for the next 45 minutes, they wanted money. For some stupid reason, I told them there's only $30 in the booth. And so there's this giant multi-drawered cash register in the office. So I told them I didn't have a key, which was true. So they started smashing it and And then they got rough and they threatened me. One guy crept up behind me, got me in a headlock, and they were going to, the guy said he was going to stab me to death. At one point, they were going to drag me outside and pour gasoline on me and light me on fire. And then they were going to shoot me. And then they were going to, and I wasn't a very big guy. I was probably about 105, 10 pounds. I was a wrestler, but I was the tiny little guy. And this went on for about 40 minutes. And finally, they were smashing the register, and the mechanic woke up and started yelling at them. And at that point, the mechanic swore at them. And the guy said, "We got a shotgun in the car. We're going to go get him, blow your heads off." So the guy ran out to his car, and I thought, well, so much for my life, you know. And so he went in his car and he was rummaging around looking for his gun, I guess. And the next thing you know, he called his buddy, and then they jumped in the car and they squealed around the gas bays for a while and took off. And then Joe came in the office and phoned the cops. And then they caught these two dummies about 45 minutes later, fast asleep in their car behind some local factory near the airport. And then I had to go. They pulled me out of school a few months later, and I had to go testify. And I looked like the bum at this point. I had a ripped T-shirt on and jeans, and these guys had like beautiful silk suits and haircuts. And I remember the judge looking at us going, you know, which one's the criminal and which one's the... But they saw me there, and they saw me. I was ready to testify, and they changed their plea to guilty, and that was it. But the funny thing was I got in shit from the Shell people for not just handing over the money. I thought I was a hero for not giving up the $45 in the register, you know, but I got in trouble from Shell. Never do that again, son. So, you know, but, you know, I've been in trouble a bunch of times when I was a kid. So there was good and bad parts.
Right. Well, you talked about your wrestling career in the book, and you know, you had a pretty good wrestling career. You had some success doing this. Tell us a little bit about the career.
Well, you know, I started in grade 10 because I was only 77 pounds in grade 9. That was like 13 pounds lower than the lowest weight class. So I had to wait a year. So the 1 year I wrestled, I did well, but then our coach moved on and we couldn't get another wrestling coach at the high school. So I just joined the club, and, you know, I mean, it was an okay career, but I think, you know, we didn't have a high school team per se. So the frustrating part about it was that me and my two buddies from high school who were wrestlers, Dave Uano and Dave Massey, we couldn't compete in high school tournaments, even though we were high school guys. So we'd go to these open tournaments and wrestle high school kids in our weight class from Etobicoke and beat them. And then they'd win the Etobicoke championship later and do well at the TDs and then the Ontario. So it was frustrating. But the highlight, you know, I wrestled the Nationals against a guy named Ray Takahashi, who was like a three-time Olympian. And he was a head coach at the University of Western Ontario for a while. And I wrestled him, and it was kind of funny because he beat me clearly. But they had a guy from the Star write an article about him because he was a phenom. And so they wrote that, you know, Ray Takahashi dumped Steve Buffery at 2 minutes into the first round. And the quote was something like, "Yeah, the competition wasn't that hard today, but I'm sure it'll get tougher tomorrow." So I never heard the end of that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and Ray and I became friends after that because, you know, being a sports writer, I covered a lot of Olympics, and I would meet him at games and stuff. So we used to joke about him dumping me in 2 minutes, you know. So, but it was a great sport. I ended up coaching high school for a couple of years. You know, I mean, I didn't do as well as you did in boxing, Joe, but, you know, it was just one of those things that, you know, I became a sports writer. What do they say about sports writers? Say you become a sports writer because you weren't great in sports, right? Or something like that, you know, so. Maybe
we have some vids of you training a little bit later on in your career here.
Yeah, nice gut.
Your sports writer career. You weren't in your 105 pound, you know, wrestling form there, but look at these, the slapping push-ups. Those are pretty good.
Yeah, they gave me oxygen after that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was great. I mean, you're also a bit of a drummer, and you kind of have some regrets around not pursuing that. Drumming.
Well, yeah, that was. I always figured that was the best thing I could do, the best thing I ever did. And you know, I had drums as a kid, but no lessons or nothing. You know, we only had so much money, and I played hockey and baseball in the summer. So that's with 8 kids and an old man who was never there. There's only so much money to go around. So I drummed on my own. But then one day, I guess I was drumming too loud overnight, and I came back from school, and the old man had put my drum kit in a snowbank out front and kick the hole through the bass drum. But so that was the end of it. But I always bought drums, always played. I always kind of wish, I mean, we all have our regrets, Joe. We all figure maybe we could have done something else, but I'm like a lot of other people. I think drumming was probably my calling, but just didn't happen. And I regret that. I really do. But, life goes in different ways. And I was lucky enough to stumble into the job I did do. So certainly no bitterness or nothing. But I love nothing better. And I don't know how you feel about this, but putting on certain music that have incredible drummers and just listening to the drum licks and playing along with it and thinking that that could have been me. But you know how it is. Like we're all good at something. I think that was, so what are you going to do, right?
Yeah, I used to love listening to John Bonham. I mean, all day long I could listen to John Bonham.
Oh, you Neil Peart guy too?
Oh, Neil Peart too, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Those guys
John
were
Bonham
legends.
and Neil Peart were 1 and 1A to me.
Yeah.
Plus, like my dad was a huge jazz guy, and he put on like jazz from the 20s and 30s, and just listening to some of these drummers who from a different era who I never heard of were like better than anything I'd ever heard. Like they always have these top 100 drummers of the past 100 years, and you don't see jazz drummers from the 20s and 30s. But when you listen to these guys, they're clearly superior than a lot of these so-called rock drummers in the top 10,
Buddy Rich.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, right. So you had Stompin' Tom Connors performing in your house.
Yeah.
Now, how does that happen? I mean, that doesn't happen with everybody, right?
No, he lived in the 60s when we lived in Etobicoke, nice little street on Etobicoke. He was just new to the scene, and he lived with a family from the East Coast as he was. He boarded with them, and he used to play at the old Horseshoe Tavern a lot, and he used to drive a truck with Stompin' Tom Connors on the side, and he had a buddy who performed under the name of Stevedore Steve, who also had a similar truck. I don't know if whatever happened to Stevedore Steve, but so Tom used to play at the Horseshoe Tavern and making a name for himself, and he used to play like we used to have street parties. I don't know if they did that in Alberta, but street parties, and all the families would get together outside in the summer, and Stompin' Tom would play. And then when weather got bad, he'd sing in people's houses, and he sang, and I think in my parents' house a couple times. And so he used to sing. And the one story was my sister Megan was the youngest, was sitting on his lap while he was singing and stomping. He always stomped. It wasn't just a gimmick. That's what he did. And so she was on his lap while he was singing and going up and down. And she had said later that she'd eaten a big piece of cheesecake. And and my dad hated country and western. He loved jazz and classical. And he used to sit there and say, "When is the Snoopy going to shut up so he can play some real music?" So stomping is warbling away and stomping. And all of a sudden he stopped. And my sister just turned around and just barfed all over him. And my dad went, "Yeah, that pretty well summarizes his music if you ask me." So he lived on our street for years. And every Saturday, all the boys would gather at the Chapman's house where he lived, because he'd load up his truck with numberless cases of empty beer to go back to the beer store. And he'd always wave $100 bill in the air and say, "Kiss it goodbye, boys. It's all going back, all going on beer." And that was like in the late 60s, early 70s. So
that's a lot of beer.
So well, they could, the whole family were, the whole street, frankly. I don't know if it was a different time, Joe, so that was, and then we went, and my mom and sister and them used to go watch him when he'd come back to Toronto and play. And he always remembered us, good old Stompin' Tom.
So you had a good 5 or 6 year high school career, and you got somehow guided into the journalism business. I believe your mother had something to do with that. Tell us about that story.
Yeah, well, I did the old 6 years plan at high school, including failing English twice. So after I graduated from Mimico High, I was working at a squash club full time behind the bar, following in the old man's footsteps. Free squash, free booze. It was the greatest job in the world. My mom didn't really like the idea, so she said, "I know you wanted to go to university. Why don't you go to Humber College? They have a journalism program." I'm like, "I don't want to go to Humber. I'd rather just work." So she talked me into it, signed up, went for an interview. They brought me in. I didn't really go to a lot of classes. I ended up covering the Humber College ice hockey team for the college newspaper, which was awesome. Still wasn't thinking that that's going to be any kind of career. So after my second year, the head of journalism called me in and said, you got to go to class. We can't. Yeah. So after like the third time he called me in, he said, I got to let you go.
Yeah.
You're just not going. I go, that's fine. Thanks a lot. He goes, but I know a guy who works at a community paper in Aurora. He's looking for a sports editor. I go, no, thanks. He goes, come on, go talk to the guy. So I went and talked to him, and it was New Year's Eve. They were having a Christmas party at their office at the Aurora Banner. Ron Wallace was his name. After about 5 minutes of an interview, he goes, you want to work here full time starting Monday? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, all right. So he hired me, and then 2 years later, he took me to the Etobicoke Guardian, and he got a promotion to a bigger weekly. And then after about a year and a half there, I got a call from George Gross from the Toronto Sun telling me he got my resume and would I like to come in for an interview. And I thought, I don't have a resume. So I went home and said to my wife, George Gross called me. He got my resume. How does that work? She goes, well, I did one for you and sent it in because I know you have no ambition and would never do one. So I went in to George, 7-minute interview, asked me how much I made at the Etobicoke Guardian. I told him, and he said, oh, I can't pay you that much, but I'll hire you for this much. I'm like, I'm going from a weekly to a daily, and I got to take a pay cut. But it was an opportunity. George was famous for doing that kind of thing. So he hired me, and then for the next 2 years, he forgot my name. So he called me Joe. You like that, Joe? How are you, Joe? And I go, good, sir. Thank you. So,
as long as the checks go through, as long as you cash the checks, what the hell? Call me Joe.
But, I got a soft spot. I'll always have a soft spot for George for hiring me a guy who, 6 years in high school, thrown out of community college. I wasn't accepted in these universities. So, not nowadays, Joe, and I don't know what it was like in TV, because I know you went to the University of Alberta, but there's no way a guy like me would get his toe in the door now, But George was like that. George hired a lot of guys, misfits, like our good friend Perry Lefko. He hired from his gut as opposed to your resume. So thank God for him. So I really did stumble kicking and screaming into the business. I didn't want any part of it at first. So in retrospect, thank God for my mom,
Well, she said, like the quote from the book is, she did not want you to follow your dad into the world of nefarious no-goodery. Was that your quote or her quote?
No, it's my quote. Yeah, she didn't actually say that. I think she probably said, I don't want you to be a thug like the old man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that was probably closer to So, I did a little bit of that on the side, but, I'd worked for the old man even when I was working in the journalism a little bit with the football sheets and that kind of thing. But, by then he wasn't doing any serious criminality in terms of thievery and that kind of thing. So, but yeah, I was lucky. I was really lucky because of my mom more than anything. So,
yeah, she even filling out that the application form for you and sending the resume into the Sun and all the other stuff.
That was my ex-wife.
Thank God for you. Your ex-wife. Okay.
Yeah, she did that. I never would have done it.
Oh, okay. I thought it was your mother did that. Okay.
I was everywhere I was, a squash club, the Aurora Banner, Etobicoke. I was happy. I would have stayed just, like, I don't know what your deal was when you came from Alberta to Toronto. You probably saw a better gig and pursued it, right?
Well, yeah. I would, for my case, I didn't even pursue it. What I actually did is, we had all the stuff, all the CTV feeds. We got all the CTV Toronto feeds because I used to do a weekly sports show in Lethbridge called Sports Beat Today, which of course Pat Marsden did. And so I would get all the Toronto CTV, CFTO back then feeds, and I ended up sending a tape to Pat more for critiquing purposes than anything else. And it just was one of those things. I sent Pat the tape, and the next day Fergie Oliver walked in and quit after 22 years. And so there was an opening and bada bing, bada boom. But that's how stuff happens. It just,
wow.
And I was taken at University of Alberta, I took drama with an English minor and worked for the campus radio station. And that's how that would never happen today, but that's how things used to work out back in the old days. You just sort of stumble onto it,
Timing
and then
is
start
everything,
sending tapes out. Yeah, timing's everything.
Well, the joke
even
was
my first job in Red Deer.
Okay. Well, I failed English twice in grade 13.
Yeah.
And then we had our high school reunion. My high school English teacher, Mr. James, was there, and I was not his favorite student. So one of my buddies goes, "Hey, Mr. James, there's Steve Buffery over there." And he's like, yeah. He goes, he's a journalist now. He goes, "Yeah, right." He goes, "No, he's a journalist." He goes, "That can't be." You know what I mean? He's a moron, So poor Mr. James, Mind you, it was a tabloid, so there was a bit of a...
Yeah. Well, no, this is awesome. I mean, where you came from and where you got to is unbelievable. But, it's a case of, keep putting one foot in front of the other. The next thing you know, you're a columnist. And tell us about the Toronto Sun in its heyday, like what kind of staff you had and what your gig looked like.
Well, the way the media is now, sort of, like the print media back then, I think we still are, but the largest sports section in Canada by a mile. We traveled with every Toronto team on the road. We had 3 or 4 guys on each beat, a couple of general sports columnists. We had over 30 guys in our department during our heyday, maybe 18 writers, 12 desk guys, editors, copy editors, that kind of thing. And, a lot of the guys in our department were not scholars, and a lot of them didn't come through like the top journalism schools like Ryerson. Some did, a lot of them didn't. And because we all consider ourselves misfits, we were so close. We were all young in those days because, the Sun was booming, and it was like every month George got to hire a new guy. And I mean, Perry and I were hired within a month of each other in 1985. George was like a old school boss, and we were so tight. We played on the hockey teams together, the old press fastball league together. We traveled together. If I was on the road covering the Jays, then some of the other guys if they were off, would jump on a plane and come and see us. And it was just the heyday of our department. And everybody was always going somewhere. Like, I did the Olympic beat for 15 years. I traveled all over the world. And we were just so tight. We're still tight today, but over the years, everybody sees what's happening, especially the newspapers, but also TV and radio to a lesser degree. It's just, it's kind of dying. And, none of the Toronto sports departments rarely travel with teams anymore. COVID changed a lot of that, Joe. I don't know what the same was in television, but after COVID, no one traveled with teams anymore. COVID made us adapt and do everything remotely. So when we all came back, the bosses are like, why pay to go to Boston when the beat guy can watch it on TV and log into the press conference remotely afterwards? And, I did that for a few years after COVID, and I felt like a total fraud. But our department was so tight. And I mean, I devoted a bit of the book to some of the shenanigans we pulled. I tried to make the book about, me. It's about me, but just sort of growing up in a place and time, Toronto in the 70s and 80s, how Toronto had changed over the years, how the business had changed, and just working at the largest sports department in Canada, which happened to be a tabloid. And, there's been movies made about the media in the past. And it was just, it's so much fun and so different. And just, being around these big time athletes, and that kind of thing, and being around you guys, the TV guys, the radio guys, it was fun. Like, I remember Jim Proudfoot, I think it was the Toronto Star. He was a great guy. Chester, everybody called him.
Jim,
you probably remember him, Joe.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We always had a thing with the TV and radio guys. We thought they were the glamour boys, right? So like yourself, you were a glamour boy. And so, we'd be interviewing a guy in the old days, as Joe, you could go to a dressing room after practice and wait out a player for a one-on-one if you wanted, right? Which is almost impossible now. So, we'd wait for a guy, and then a radio guy would come over and stick his microphone. And Jim used to say the F word, like say the actual word while they were interviewing.
Just screw up the interview.
Exactly. So there was always kinds of shenanigans like that. You know what I mean? I'm sure you guys had your ways of getting to the lowly print guys at times, but so it was a different time. It was just so much fun,
Yeah. We just had a mild resentment. It was particularly with baseball, right? Because as soon as the game's over, the newspaper guys get the first crack at the manager and the players and everything else. So you guys get first crack. And the reason is because, Howard Starkman, being the former newspaper guy, knew that you guys had deadlines, and that's the way it went. But it might have even been a Major League Baseball rule because you guys had specific hard deadlines, whereas we were going on TV later and we could turn stuff around. It was a little bit easier, but it was a bummer for us to have to wait till you guys were finished. And then sometimes our guys are cracking jokes, with Cito or whatever after the, and guys, come on, we want to.
Yeah. I remember those days, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, John Gibbons, we'd sit there and he would he'd talk about the game for 5 minutes. And then next thing you know, he's off on a tangent about politics or something. And I could see the TV guys just like, all right, enough about, what George W. is doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Jim, by the way, Jim O'Leary says hi. We golf together over Sleepy Hollow sometimes. So it's kind of fun. But,
nice.
O'Leary's over there. Yeah. So you talk about deadline pressure in the book, and we just talked about it a little bit there, but you had an editor ask you when you were getting your story and you told him the game wasn't over yet. And that's kind of stuff that you would have to deal with. What was that pressure like for you, though?
People, all your buddies now think it's glamorous. Oh, you're talking to big time athletes going to games and for free and all that, sitting in the press box, which is great. But especially every night game, you've got your entire newspaper waiting for your game story. So if the game ends at 10:30, the entire paper is waiting to go to print on your game story. So if the game ends, you got to file your story right away. They don't care that the score just changed 4 times in the last 2 innings or the last 30 seconds in a Raptors game. You got to file it, and it's got to make sense, and it's got to be readable. So you got to do it all over again for replay after you go in the dressing room, interview the players again. You got to go back upstairs and rewrite with quotes, rewrite with updates, injury updates, that kind of thing. So tons of pressure. You got to do it really, really quick. So, I mean, there's untold stories, numbers of stories, Joe, about, I don't know about your business, TV, but guys just freaking out at deadlines. Just that the pressure is so great. Like I was okay usually, but I mean, there were one time in Dallas, and in those days before the internet, you had to file over the phone. And if their phone line was compromised, you're screwed. And the paper's waiting for you. They don't want to hear any excuses. They don't want to hear that there's a glitch on your phone or whatever. They look, if you're not ready to file right away, it's because you effed up. Nothing to do with technology, even if it was. They don't care. The whole paper's waiting for you. It's going to print and it's waiting for your game story. So, I remember Dallas once. I finished filing my first edition piece right after the game ended, and the phone line didn't work. And I tried to get somebody there to fix it. They couldn't. I started cursing Mark Cuban, the owner of the Mavericks. Well, you got all this effing money. Why don't your effing phones work? And then he walked away, and then I started yelling at nobody in particular. And then I started throwing chairs around the press box like I had lost it, And finally, after throwing a bunch of chairs and screaming at everybody, I tried the line. It works now. Okay, everything's fine. And then, but I know lots of guys.
Mark, you can come back now.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to hire somebody to off me. Not that he does that, but I know guys who've had major health issues on road trips, especially because of deadlines, and it's a tough. 90% of it, it's like they say movie stars. 5% of it is the glamour, 95% of it is sitting around waiting. Same with us. Like you go sit at a baseball press box, everybody's watching the screen or looking at something on your laptop or talking to your buddy from the other paper, and then crack. Everybody looks at the diamond, write down what happened, and everything's great until the game is close and deadline's looming. And the one thing you mentioned about, it was after 10:30, and I got a call from the desk saying, "Beezer, where's your story?" And I go, "What do you mean?" "Well, send us your game story. We're waiting." I go, "The bloody game hasn't ended." "Well, can you send it anyway?" I go, "How? You want me to make up a score?" I think it was like a junior guy in the desk who was freaking out because he's under pressure to get the page out too.
Yeah, everybody, right? Yeah.
So I go, I'll talk to the effing players and see if they can hurry it up a little bit, But stuff like that happens all the time, right?
Yeah. Sam Mitchell. You got to get the guys to sink the bed. Don't call a timeout, Sam. I don't have time for this.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But Sam was great one way, Joe. I'll tell you, we used to go to practice in basketball. You've got sort of 5 main rotation guys who play 90% of the time. So after a while, especially if the team's mediocre, you run out of things to write. So we'd go to a practice and Sam would talk to us. Great guy, funny as hell.
Oh, yeah.
And he talked to us and we'd all be kind of mumbling. Yeah. He'd say, "What are you guys writing about?" We go, "We got nothing, Sam. Give us something." So he would launch into some diatribe about something. And we'd all be going, "Oh, man, this is gold. Thank you. Thank you." Like he would start belittling one of his players or making fun of somebody, and we'd be all writing it down. "This is pure gold, Sam. Thank you." And he'd say, "You got what you needed?" We go, "Yeah, all right." Unfortunately, they weren't all like that, but Sam was gold that way, I'll tell you. He was awesome.
Yeah, and you know what the great thing was? You're working for a paper where sports matters. I mean, sports drove the Toronto Sun. Always did, always
absolutely.
Probably will. And without that, you haven't got anything. So I mean, it's good to be a priority, which you guys were, right? Obviously.
Yeah, but we knew it. It was sports and crime and the Sunshine Girl.
Yeah,
that was us.
There you go. Yep. Sports and crime and the Sunshine Girl. I know that you were also, though, a big boxing fan, of course, as am I. What attracted you to the sweet science?
Well, my dad loved boxing. Boxed as a teenager. Used to love watching boxing on TV in the old days when they actually showed boxing on TV, Joe. And when I was a teenager, I certainly didn't pursue the sport like you did, fist and fists. But me and my buddies, especially Steve Chalmers, we used to go to all the different boxing clubs in the West End and put the gloves on and spar, and by and large, pretty pathetic. But I guess we, and also on our street, my dad and one of the dads up the street used to hold, couldn't do it now, I don't think, but used to hold boxing matches on the front lawn. And even in our high school, Joe, we used to have boxing matches after school in the cafeteria. It was pretty awesome. I don't think a lot of high schools did that, but
no.
So I just loved the sport, and I just when I went to the Sun, boxing was really lively in those days, as you probably remember. Toronto, there's lots of local cards, and we also had Lennox fighting world title fights. Guys like Willie Featherstone and the Hilton brothers, and we used to cover all their fights. John O'Sullivan was huge after the '84 Olympics, as you remember. So I covered all his fights. So Steve Simmons and I used to split all, because he was a big boxing guy at the Sun too. So we used to split all the boxing duties. We used to go to Vegas and Atlantic City and other places. And we were known as the two Steves from Canada because they couldn't remember our last names. But I just loved it. Just loved the sport. Still do. It's, in some ways, it's a shame what's happened to it. But I also love MMA. But, and that's the other thing too. When I used to do Olympics, Joe, I got to do the boxing. I insisted on covering the boxing because my attitude was, if you go to the boxing, something interesting is always going to happen, either in the ring or out of it. Boxers had fantastic personalities, because they weren't filtered athletes like you get now. They spoke from their heart. A lot of them came from the other side of the tracks, which I liked. It's no mystery that, a lot of rich people don't put their kids in boxing, right? I don't know what your background was like, but, so I found boxers fascinating, I don't know. It really, and I love covering them, the amateurs as well as the pros, and
we saw some
are good guys.
Right. Absolutely. And we saw some pictures there with you and Lennox and you and Tyson and Dominic Fillane. And tell us a little bit your experience with Tyson. What was your and George, of course. Yeah. And what were your thoughts about Tyson when you met him?
Yeah, well, I covered a bunch of his fights, including the time he bit Evander's ear in Vegas. I covered that fight with Steve Brunt from the Globe and I guess Rick Fraser from the Star. And a lot of people talk about that fight and him and Mike fighting Holyfield's ear. But another big story was afterwards was all these gang guys from LA who were at that fight in Vegas were shooting in the casino at the hotel afterwards. So for the first time in years or ever, they had to shut down the casino on a huge betting weekend. When there's a heavyweight title fight in Vegas, the hotels are packed with fans betting big money. And I remember they had to shut down the casino, and the organizers they walked Steve Brunt and I through the casino, and it was closed. It was so weird seeing this gigantic Vegas casino completely closed because there was some shooting and gang fights and stuff. And Steve Brunt, by the way, ended up taking more notes than I did. And if I remember, ended up winning a national newspaper award for the whole scene. And I was so dopey. I remember thinking, maybe I should have just written more about the background than Mike biting the ear, which it's a lesson learned, right? So then anyway, I covered a bunch of his fights. He'd get to know certain writers, mostly the American guys and a few Brits. But he got to know me a little bit. And then when he had his one-man show, I flew to Vegas to do a one-on-one sit-down with him. And it was supposed to be like a one-feature story. I think they were giving me 25 minutes. And it ended up turning into about an hour because we really got on. And at one point, I said to him, by the way, George Chuvalo says hello. And he went into this, love George, talked about George's career. Then he started on about a 20-minute nice lecture about Canadian boxing, going back to the turn of the century with George Dixon and Sam Langford and who they fought for. He was a boxing historian. He loved Canadians. He used to train with the Hiltons when they drive down from Montreal to the Catskills. And he goes, those MFers are crazy. And for Mike Tyson to say you're crazy,
you're crazy.
You're crazy. So, and he was awesome. So I ran a third feature on his Canadian boxing knowledge. And of course, I found out later that his old manager, Jim Jacobs, had the biggest TV or film collection of old boxing fights. Yeah. And so he used to just spend nights with Jim and them watching old boxing fights. It was amazing. And he was awesome. But I also had this sense, Joe, that while we talked and he was gentle and all this other stuff, I just had the sense that he could snap at any minute and just squish you.
Destroy you, yeah. I mean, if you imagine if he ever full force punched you in the head, punched me in the head, punched anybody in the head, the kind of damage that guy could do with the power. He was a very
bundle of just strength and energy. I can see how he was intimidating in the ring, even when he was smaller than a lot of the guys he fought, Joe.
Yeah. I like the fact that Lennox always was able to stand up to right from the time they were amateurs.
Yeah.
Lennox,
and there was a great guy too.
Yeah.
I don't know how good you got to know him, but he was like when we used to cover his fights, it was always me, a guy from the Star, usually Rick Fraser and Stephen Brunt from the Globe. And what Lennox would do is, because he was fighting, as you remember, he was fighting out of Great Britain when he turned pro. He went back to England where he was originally from and fought for a promoter.
Well, he couldn't make any money here.
No. And it was exactly. So, and he had a huge following over there. Boxing was and still is huge.
Huge.
So, but what he used to do is we'd go to one of his fights and he would hold a media session a few days before the fight in the morning for the American reporters. And then he'd hold one in the afternoon for the British reporters. And oftentimes he would hold a private one, sometimes in his room, for just me, Steve Brunt, and Rick Fraser, just the three of us, the Canadian guys.
Wow.
He didn't have to do that, but he did it. And he was just a great guy that way,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he fought for Canada. He was always considered himself Canadian. Sure, he went to Britain because that was where the money was, but he always has and will consider himself a Canadian. He's a friend of all the Canadian boxers, and he was happy to come on our show. He's a great guy. This really is.
And he still lives there by and large.
Right. I mean, Brampton, right? So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, he spends some of the winter in Jamaica, which is, give him that.
Well, the guy's got enough money to buy any house anywhere he wants.
Yeah. So there's a show that started up back in the Sun TV days. It was called the Casino-Rama Grill Room. You were on a number of times, and host Gareth Wheeler mentioned that the show was actually your idea in one of the clips we have here. Vic, let's roll that.
I looked at it as a way of promoting our sports department. I suggested to my boss, Pat Greer, who's now with Rogers Sportsnet. He thought it was a decent idea, and he brought it to the people here, and I didn't really do much after that.
Well, except for coming on the show 400 odd times. And we have a lot of you guys on the show, and really you guys are the backbone of the show. And I just want to know from the writer's perspective, do you think this is a good way of expressing your personalities another way other than putting pen to paper, so to speak?
I think so. I really do. I think, sports writers sort of have an image of being crusty, grumpy. But we also have personalities. Right. And I think it does us a lot of good to get out there. And, I just think it's, maybe you mention what you're working on sometimes. You promote the newspaper. I think it's a win-win, really.
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, right. Very good.
I meant Gareth.
So was it really over 400 times? And do you miss doing stuff like that? Was it good for you for the department?
I have a face for print, Joe, and I tend to mumble a bit, but yeah, it was great because how that happened was I think I might have the facts not 100% perfect, but our paper had bought Toronto One, the television station that's at a little studio right across the street from us downtown. And I was covering the Raptors in Philly one day, and I was sitting with Doug Smith from the Star, and in the lunchroom or the media dining room before the game started, and there was something on the TV, and it was all these Philly sports writers on this TV channel, local TV channel, talking about the game and other Philly sports. And I asked somebody about it. He goes, "Yeah, well, the one of the papers owns a local TV station, and they use the sports writers." And I thought, well, that just happened to us. So I came back to Toronto. I told this idea to my boss, Pat Greer, and he took it to Toronto One, and they started, and it was awesome. We had we had a great time, and in retrospect, being kind of a naive kind of guy, I should have made myself a producer, so I got a little bit for every show instead of only the ones I appeared on. But it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I met a lot of people. I got a little bit of a taste for TV. Realizing that I couldn't do it full time, but it was great. It was just a lot of fun, made some extra money. It was a sad day when they shut it down, but that's the business, right, Joe?
Yeah, I know. It's the business has changed so much. Where do you see it going?
Well, I know newspapers are all going to go online soon. Like I was at Steve Simmons on the weekend, for a little picnic sort of thing. And he was saying that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, one of the biggest and best newspaper in the U.S., is shutting down its print operation in the next little while and going strictly to online. So that's what's happening in newspapers. That's going to happen. I think there's no coming back from that. Just every year, fewer and fewer people are actually picking up a physical newspaper. They're still a lot of people still reading them online, but that's still less jobs. No printers anymore. No layout people. In some ways, I'm glad I'm out of it because I hate to say the word dying, but it's just kind of sad. And TV, it's not really my thing, but you tell me, Joe. I mean, I'm sure they're not spending as much money locally as they used to. They've shut down smaller markets. I know they've shut down TV stations, haven't they, across Canada?
Oh, of course, yeah, TV and radio. It's all kind of just jammed together.
What do you think?
All these little outlets are gone. Well, I think it's pretty much over. I mean, there's going to be the 24-hour news stations will continue. Local TV local news, local everything, local news, local sports. Forget about it. Because it's, Bell in its infinite wisdom decided that local sports wasn't important because any sports you are going to be, anybody wants to watch sports, you'll watch TSN. So that's why they shut down all the local sports and all the local TV stations across the country. But there's no local sports coverage now. The only place you can get it is online. And I guess if you want to get some local sports coverage, you're just going to have to go online. And there's never going to be any kind of money for that. You'll just have to be at the beck and call of those people that are willing to, take the time to cover stuff. like Rogers Cable used to, and stuff like that. I mean, that's the only place you're going to get local sports, period, on TV, and probably print media as well. You're going to have to get somebody writing columns on their own and publishing stuff online, and that's it, right?
And you missed the problem. I grew up watching CFTO sports with Pat and Fergie, and then you came on later, and you see the personalities of local guys. You know what I mean? You used to do your thing. Coming up. Yeah. And it was great. Then you see the same guys. You see Fergie walking around giving the Blue Jays $50 bills to do interviews with them. Remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if you were around in those days.
Had a lot of money back then. Nobody's giving money for it. I don't know
the story, but he would walk around before a game handing out $50 bills to get interviews. And they would be, oh, yeah, for sure, Fergie. Like, I hope I'm not talking out of turn here, but everybody knows it, right?
Oh, for sure. That was crazy. Yeah. You got away with it. So personally now, you've had a couple families. I guess your first wife and Bubba, who used to mention frequently in your columns, was she okay with that?
With what was, sorry, my who?
When you used to mention Bubba in your columns, was your daughter okay with that? Yeah.
She was okay with it, Joe, because I never actually identified her real name. So her friends and associates and compatriots and schoolmates didn't know. But except for one day, she was at her middle school and she was walking down the hallway, and one of the teachers, who I guess used to read my column, screamed across the hallway, "Hey, Bubba!" And she just froze in horror.
Oh, no.
And then he realized he committed a faux pas and said, sorry. So she was okay with it. But the joke about that was when I wrote my Leave It to Beezer column, Joe, I used to quote Bubba all the time. And so all my buddies at work, including especially Steve Warnsby, used to joke that I had this book at home beside my laptop called The Fictional Book the Big Book of Fictional Bubba Quotes. So if I needed a Bubba quote, I'd go in the book and get one. And I claimed that they were real quotes, but Bubba was okay with it. But sometimes she would reluctantly read my column and just kind of roll her eyes because she hated sports, so she didn't get the whole process, right? But I still call her Bubba. She's at 31 now, and I still call her. I call her Bubba because Frank Orr, if you remember him from the Star,
of course,
he called me Bubba, and he was such a wonderful man. So for some reason, when she was born, I picked up the mantle, and so he called her that. So she was cool with it. It was all about having fun, right? Right.
Well, now you got your young son, Tommy. You post a lot about Tommy. He's great. I've met him before, and you've remarried to Janet, of course. And Tommy's a good little hockey player. We've seen some video of Tommy scoring quite a bit. Tell us about Tommy's exploits and about you being a proud papa here.
Yeah, well, the first thing is, my daughter hated sports, so I was one of these dads who thought, oh, my kid's going to be playing sports, and so I didn't have it with her. So, so Tommy loves sports, and it's funny though. I go to games, and I look like his granddad, standing all next to the parents. Right? I've got, I don't know, like I've gotten that everywhere we go. Oh, you got a cute grandson. I just go with it now. Thanks a lot. He takes after his old man. So he loves hockey. That's his thing, and he used to play other sports, but he just wanted to stick with hockey. He's not the second coming of Bobby Orr, but he's a rushing defenseman, and he started a bit late, and he just has a little natural flair. And this year we wanted to play closer to home because I live in Etobicoke, and he plays for Port Credit. And he just said, "Dad, I love the kids. I love the dads and moms. I want to stay put." So, it's to me, I always tell people, not just because of the hockey, believe me, Tommy was born when I was 55. And I always tell people he's been a gift. It's almost like a retirement present. I didn't expect him, and my wife's a bit younger. And so now that I'm retired, Joe, if I didn't have Tommy chase around all day, I don't know what the hell I would do. Like I don't golf anymore. I used to love golfing, but unlike you, I find it very frustrating all the time. So, I walk every day, but Tommy is, he's kind of kept me going, So your kids are older now, right?
Oh yeah. My kids are older and all over the world, right? So
are they?
Yeah. So it's you enjoy them while you can, spend time with them when you can, because you never know when they're going to be, gone. So, yeah, it's
well,
great.
The other thing too is after his games, Joe, I write up a game story from all their games and put it on the team website. So I do little game reports, like I was at the Sun, right? And the kids and the dads and the moms get a huge kick out of it. So, I'll do a game story, a description with a tabloid lead on it. And, the only difference is I don't rip them like I used to rip the Leafs, because they're 10, 11 years old,
Right.
So well, I want to rip them sometimes, but you can't.
Yeah, you can't say, little Joey, man, he's got to start pulling his weight. Come on, You're a floater. Let's go.
Exactly.
then you got to deal with Joey's dad.
Ways around that,
Yeah. Yeah, right. So, you talked about in the book, I mean, a lot about the drinking exploits. I'm assuming things have toned down in the past. Well, I know they have for me, because I can relate to a lot of it, but I haven't drank for a long time. But yeah.
Well, I was given the orders from medical authorities to lay off.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it means you're going to be around for a while to witness Tommy's exploits. So that's a good thing, right? Yeah.
So now instead of drinking to go to sleep, I just punch myself in the head a few times. Like the old boxer's way.
Yeah.
Well, they used to say about sports writers, we don't know how to sleep. We only know how to pass out.
Yeah, that was for me for a long, long time. I just a lot of changes in my life, but it's been good. I mean, here I am today, and I'm in a pretty good place, despite what we have to go through in life, right? Yeah. So the final question, Beezer, we're partnered with a group called Believe, Become You. It's a mentorship program for kids 10 to 17, inspired by the late Sean Gindy, led by Papa Jack. What's the message that you might have for any kids who would be struggling to find their way in today's world?
Yeah, and Joe, it's tougher now, with social media and stuff. The bullying and the other thing, like I remember during COVID when kids had to stay home, and I remember one of the teachers telling me that one of the hard part about, teaching remotely is that teachers, if a kid is struggling at home or being bullied, oftentimes when you see them in person, you can pick that up. But when the kids are locked at home, you probably don't. There's a lot of kids probably more than ever falling through the cracks. So, I like I said, myself and my siblings had a brutal childhood in a lot of ways. Just I embraced my friends. We didn't have helplines and social workers in those days, but it's a tough thing, Joe. I mean, it's just. If it's at home, talk to your teacher, talk to a relative. It's also different, Joe. You have to learn to adapt, and it's also different. I don't know what your approach is at when you're dealing with young people. Like I'm not sure. Everybody's story is different, right? I mean, you got a 10-year-old at home who's having problems at home with his parents. Where does he go? Right?
Right.
Like there were days when I wanted to talk to a guidance counselor, but I thought if it gets back to my dad, I'm screwed. So what do you do? Right?
Yeah. And I think that there's a fear around that there will be repercussions. And I think that the most important thing is to realize that regardless of the repercussions, better for you to, let people know how you're feeling and how you're doing and what's going on, and just trust that, it'll get to the right place. And because, and bullies need to be called out too. I mean, let's face it. I mean, bullies at every age need to be called out. That's what I think that would be the most important thing. Yeah,
like unlike our day, bullies were in the neighborhood and at the playground, right? Now, you go online and there's like 30 people who attack you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, it is like a bully at the playground, and you have to make a choice as an individual. Am I going to support the bully out of loyalty, or am I going to do what's right?
Exactly.
I mean, there's bully loyalty, which is bullshit, quite frankly. And call bullies out when somebody's not doing, and somebody's hurting another person. in an uncalled for fashion, call it out, man. Just for what it is, and be supportive of the bullier, not the bully, the bullyee, and not the bully.
Right.
But it's like that's Anyway, that's the way I see it. But
there's no one script for
no,
kids who are struggling, right?
No,
Yeah. But talk to people. I guess the thing is talk to people, right?
Yeah.
Your friends, or if it's not happening at home, talk to your parents, talk to your teachers. Talking to me is a big thing.
For sure. If we got a problem and I talk about it, and there's lots of people and I'm so grateful that I have those people that I can talk to. And I'm not worried about what they, them thinking less of me, like whatever, because it's say, hey man, I'm an open book. I got problems. I got issues, And I don't mind.
I think in the old days, Joe, we were sort of programmed to hold your feelings inside, which was wrong, right? There's nothing wrong with coming out, like Michael Landsberg, for instance, coming out and discussing.
Sick, not weak. Yeah.
Exactly.
Sick, not weak.
I wish I did more of that when I was younger.
Can't turn back the clock, but we can sort of help move things ahead in a positive direction. That's all we can do. The little that each one of us can do. That's great. Well, listen, Beezer, I want to say thank you for taking this time to join us. It's been great catching up. Awesome to see you, my friend.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Joe. I really do. And thanks for reaching out to me and managing to get through my book.
It's great. And I just, this is more of the book, baby. This could be a movie. I love it. It's going to be great. But I sure hope you get it published and in the not too distant future.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it, buddy.
Okay, when we come back, James Duthie talks about getting his big break. Back after this. In 1992, the best locally owned restoration companies came together with one goal: to make disaster recovery better for Canadians. And to this day, DKI remains one of the only 100% Canadian-owned disaster restoration groups in the market. Fire, flood, or storm damage. When things go wrong, the right help makes all the difference. With the right tools and local expertise, we handle everything from emergency response to full-scale restoration, getting homes and businesses back on track the right way. Because a home is more than four walls. A business is more than a building, and recovery is about more than repairs. When you choose DKI, you're choosing a company that's put Canada first since 1992. Locally owned, nationally backed, Canadian through and through. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center. Saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Hearing loss doesn't have to mean missing out. At Hear Canada, we help you take charge with a complimentary hearing assessment because confidence starts with clarity. Discover hearing aids, accessories, and expert care at your local hearing center. Not sure where to start? Our Hearing Health Guide has the basics for you or a loved one. It worked for us. Book your free assessment today at hearcanada.com. Conditions may apply.
So at Carleton, you had to do a 1-week internship, and CJOH, which was CTV Ottawa, they did internships so we could come for a week and fetch coffee and everything. But you actually got to do a couple of stories that went on air that they usually run as the very last story on the 11:30 newscast. And I did a couple, and I guess I did a decent job. But breaks are everything in this business, and mine was a literal break. Guy Lepage, who was a reporter in Ottawa, Guy Lepage, CJOH TV, Gatineau. Guy Lepage broke his rib skiing on the Saturday. I finished my internship on a Friday. And I guess I was fresh in their head and they needed somebody to do the shift on Sunday. And so called me and I did a shift. And then was back Monday and back Tuesday and back Wednesday and was working full time while I was still in school with a couple of months left in my last year of school. And they hired me for the summer and then hired me full time. And I spent 5 or 6 years covering murders and fires and all the stuff you see on the local news, all the while desperately wanting to get into sports. And I got to do a little bit of stint. Carolyn Waldo, the synchronized swimmer, came and worked for us, and she had a couple of babies, so I would fill in for her. And then unfortunately, when Smitty died, that was the break that I got to move into sports, which was an incredibly difficult thing because as I told you, I admired him so much, and you'd wanted something your whole career. All I wanted to do was be a sportscaster, and then you get it by a dear friend of yours dying. And it never felt right for me. So I went into the newsroom and worked with Bill and Carolyn for a year and a half, but I never felt right about it. And it kind of ate away at me and haunted me almost that this was how I'd gotten my break. And so I ended up taking another news job in Vancouver and kind of giving up on my dream just because I didn't feel right about the job in Ottawa. And somewhere in the midst of that, I did an audition at TSN. Keith Pelly, who was running TSN, had seen me covering a Senators game or something and called, and I went and did an audition, and they didn't have a job for me at that time. And I moved out to Vancouver and I told him, I really want to go live in BC for a while. I love BC. And I said, don't call me for 2 or 3 years, because he said, I still want to hire you. And he called me 6 months later and gave me the job hosting CFL and NBA for TSN. So that was that.
Discover the secret to timeless vitality at Renew Medical Center in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Our specialists unravel the science of aging, tailoring plans to defy its effects. Experience cutting-edge regenerative therapies such as stem cells and exosomes, addressing aging at its core.
It's a wonderful spot, and I highly recommend it for whatever you may need, whether you just want to feel better, you want to look better, have basically a quality of life, just to ramp it up a little bit as we age.
Liberate yourself from aging-related concerns, where accountability, technology, and passion for regenerative medicine converge. Begin your path to peak health and wellness with us. Schedule your appointment today at renewpv.com and elevate your quality of life.
Parents, what's the biggest fear for kids 10 to 14? A future they think they can't handle. At Believe, Become, Be You, we know confidence in the future is a habit we can build. Our course doesn't just prepare kids for the future, it seeds them with skills they will use now. For a limited time, the I Believe in Me Foundation is offering the first 1,000 kids and their parents 1 year free access. This priceless opportunity will save you over $2,000. This isn't just a course. It's a journey in developing life-enhancing skills that will grow with your child, fostering gritty minds, creative futures, and better bonds. Get signed up now at BelieveBecomeBeYou.com. That's BelieveBecomeBeYou.com.
And we want to thank all the folks who make the show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. Thank you for your support of Canadian sports. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, wherever you get your podcast from. Also, check out our past shows on YouTube. All of our past shows are on there. Clips, shorts, like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Our socials, at Joe Tilley on Instagram and Threads, Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show on Facebook. Thanks once again to Steve Buffery for joining us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, Their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. And let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678. I'm Joe Tilley, and this fall I want you to join me for the adventure of a lifetime in Peru. We're talking about a 9-day guided journey through some of the most awe-inspiring sights on Earth, starting at just $19.99. We'll explore Lima, Peru's lively capital. You'll experience rich history, beautiful architecture, and world-class cuisine. You'll also wander the vibrant streets of Cusco, where Inca heritage blends seamlessly with colonial charm, and visit the stunning Sacred Valley, known for its dramatic landscapes, ancient Inca ruins, and charming traditional villages. And the big moment? We'll ride the scenic Inca train to spend a night in Machu Picchu village, waking up early to witness a magical morning light over the ancient citadel, a once-in-a-lifetime experience you'll never forget. Craving more? Extend your trip with a stay at a luxury Amazon lodge, or visit Lake Titicaca and meet the locals on the floating islands. This all-inclusive package covers international and domestic flights, expert guided tours, entrance fees, and stays at hand-picked hotels. And here's the kicker. Book now to receive a free upgrade to first-class boutique-style hotels and a direct flight from Toronto on selected dates. Don't miss it. Let's discover the magic of Peru together. Rooted in 60 years of tradition, Sleepy Hollow is a private golf club with a friendly community of members just minutes from Toronto. With mature trees and rolling fairways, Sleepy Hollow provides a challenging and enjoyable experience for passionate golfers. Enjoy great golf, amazing dining, and a picturesque patio second to none. Visit sleepyhollowcountryclub.com.